The world is a cold and lonely place without you in it, Vista. I just miss you. And since you've been gone, I've been accused of being an observer, a user, a loner, a cleaner, a failure, and a fool. But never a participant. No one's ever accused me of that.
Hello and welcome to the first pilot podcast. You're joined here with myself, Nathan Whitehead, and with Hunter.
Hi guys, I'm Hunter.
All right. Before we jump in, so today we're going to be reviewing and I guess critiquing the movie Before I Disappear. Before we jump in, we'll talk a little bit about ourselves. So we met in studying 3D animation. And yeah, we both have an intense passion for film, and been really looking forward to just having someone to discuss, that kind of passion with. And glad you could join me here, Hunter.
Should be good. Looking forward to it. So yeah, we met a few years ago. We've been friends ever since. We got into sort of Magic the Gathering and stuff like that together. And yeah, we've our friendship sort of kept up ever since that. So what's the movie we're talking about today?
Yeah. So we're going to be jumping into. I guess it's a bit of an indie film. I only heard about it until you suggested it to me. So it's Before I Disappear. Do you want to go ahead and give a summary of that?
Okay, so I watched this movie founded maybe a year or two ago. It's an indie movie. It's about a guy who he's a bit down on his luck. He's got depression. He's struggling with wanting to commit suicide. He had a girlfriend who recently died. We don't kind of know why, but it's kind of him dealing with that and his family issues, and he kind of goes on a bit of an adventure with his niece, it's kind of a bunch of really interesting scenes and stuff that makes up the movie. Yeah,
that's definitely something I found that the movie did really, really well, is that there's a lot of you don't know. There's a lot that's kind of said at the start, like you don't know how his girlfriend died, and it kind of gets told as the movie goes on. There seems to be like a lot happening that makes the world actually feel quite big, and there's a lot of characters and there's things done off screen, but you can kind of assume that they're happening, and it just gives you this like world building that I actually really appreciated when watching. But I definitely got the feeling that the name is actually really fitting. Before I Disappear is, he at the very start it's kind of established that he wants to commit suicide before he gets interrupted to look after his niece. And so it's really he's been forced to do these things before he disappears, so to speak. But I almost wanted to call the film like Can I Just Die in Peace for the first couple of stages of the film. So yeah, that's definitely a film about reconnecting with family and dealing with like you said, depression and suicidal thoughts, and he's really in a depressing place. I mean, so he works two jobs, one at a bar and one at a bowling alley. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And yeah, his bosses are quite shady characters, and they got a bit of dirt on him, but they're trying to cover up their own dirt, and it makes these really tense scenarios. And he's having to look after this niece, and there's nowhere to really take her, so he's forced to take her to these really shady places. And there's this interesting conundrum because she's like really innocent, and these are all really shady characters, and
she's like a private school child who's like a genius, like good at everything that she does, like Miss Perfect, if you will.
Yeah. Like, was like that line. She was just like, I have to. If I don't make my test tomorrow morning, if I don't get to do my homework, I'm gonna kill you. Kind of like
there will be hell to pay.
Yeah. That's the one. So, really, really uptight. I mean, I remember when she was like introduced, I was just like, wow, that is that's a very stark contrast, but they do quite a good job of that.
Yeah.
So
should I give it a little bit? I know a little bit of. I've done a bit of research about the director, etc. Should I like give a little bit of a synopsis about that?
Yeah, but how about don't do any spoilers. I know we kind of vaguely touched on things during the synopsis, but yeah, just no spoilers. So yeah, go ahead and talk about the director, and then we'll jump in and we'll talk about some pros and cons. So.
All right. So I first found this film because of Ron Perlman, who is in it. I was kind of looking through movies that he did. I'm a bit of a big fan, and I found this one and I gave it a try. And so that's how I found it. The guy who directed it is Shawn Christensen. He's also the main character. He also wrote the whole thing. And I think he did some of the songs as well. He has a band. He basically seems to be like a huge talent. The movie is based on a short film that he also like directed, wrote, etc. It's basically a movie extension of that, adapted from the short film. And the short film won an Oscar for best short film. This one didn't. The full movie didn't. It won a few like indie sort of movie festival awards. It didn't get an Oscar or anything, but that's kind of the background for it. Yeah. That's really cool. Actually, I did not realize that it was directed, produced, starred, and written by Shawn Christensen. That's a solid effort right there. Yeah, hard.
All right. So yeah. So this was your movie suggestion to me. So what do you really like about the film?
What I like about it is I like films with a sort of an aesthetic that resonates with me. You've seen The Brothers Bloom, which is one of my favorite movies. That also has an aesthetic that resonates with me. This movie immediately hit me straight in the face with that aesthetic, which is like the scene with when he takes the. Are we still doing no spoilers?
Go on.
Okay. So the scene where they're all wearing masks and the David Bowie music's playing, and he's like walking in slow motion, it just really hits you in the face of like that style that not a lot of movies have, and really resonates with me. It's not a way to describe it. It's pretty hard to describe, but
it has
when
that
you
distinct
see it,
like visual, like the lighting of it is really like high contrast, but with like colors, like it's really stark when it comes out to me. Like it's not exactly like soft in the eyes. A lot of the scenes are fairly dark lit, and I think it's to do it like reflects a little bit of his personality through the film. So I think the characters kind of force that aesthetic on the film, and the film does a really good job of accepting that and reinforcing that through the lighting, the visuals on the screen, the audio, and the choice of script.
Yeah, I mean it's a dark movie. It deals with some pretty like dark topics, but then it lampshades that with like quirky humor and fun characters like Sophia.
Yeah, it definitely does, and like it's really smart to do so that it has that contrast, because if it was just kind of this guy's like suicidal rampage the whole way through, it would get really dull very very quickly. You wouldn't really want to watch someone's suicidal note for an hour and a half. It's just so it does a great job of mixing up the scenes as well. I think some of the scenes it dwells on a little bit long, but it does mix things up in a good way. It's almost as if it was an experiment on let's throw in as many like really interesting scenes that don't necessarily relate, like they don't mesh together in like a cohesive way, but they're just like lots of interesting ideas strung together in these different scenes that create up the narrative of the movie, and lead them from place to place. I definitely agree with you. It definitely does feel like a bit of an experiment. I think there was one point when I was watching when they're in that bowling alley, and it's almost as if they thought like, what happens if we get this suicidal, past drug user and his niece, who's this like really uptight straight A school kid, and put them into this bowling alley at like a really kind of a bit shady at nighttime. Just gotta see what happens. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It seems to work quite well. Right. Was just I definitely agree with you on those points. I think the movie was paced. There were some moments where it was a bit slow. But for the most part, it does keep it going, and I think going back to kind of a point that I made earlier, like it does a really good job of keeping the world quite big and expansive. So he's got two different bosses, and they kind of have a bit of dirt on each other, and it does a really good way of just kind of you can see that they're like working against each other and using the main character. Is it Rishi?
Richie. So
yeah.
Richie for short, Richard for full.
Right. And so he's like kind of like a pawn in their game, but you don't see the full game, which I think is really cool. So
it's insinuated. So basically, the two bosses, one's the bowling alley guy, and the other is I forgot his name, but he's played by Ron Perlman.
Gideon.
Gideon's the bowling guy.
Is it Chris?
I can't remember, to be honest, but he's played by Ron Perlman, who played Hellboy. Fantastic performance, I reckon.
No,
blew it out. Like, he wasn't in the movie a lot, but when he was in it, blew it out of the water.
Definitely stand out. I mean, there was a lot of like shades to him as a character, where it was like on the one hand he seemed very threatening on screen, but then on the other he was like disingenuine, sympathetic. And then other times he was actually genuinely sympathetic, and so you kind of.
You're not. Sorry, you go.
Yeah. So he was like quite a colorful character, and I really enjoyed his performance. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, and you weren't quite sure whether when he was being sympathetic, whether he was just saying that in a manipulative mood. Manipulative way of doing it, not actually genuine. So basically, it plays out that. So basically, these two bosses that he works for.
Spoilers then, if we're gonna, so we can get down into the nitty gritty.
Guys.
Spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film yet, guys, and you don't want us to ruin anything, it's a fantastic film. I do suggest watching it fresh. I think there was a lot of twists that I really enjoyed. So yeah, if you guys don't want any spoilers, do pause here. Go and watch the film. It's about an hour and a half long, 93 minutes running time. And go and check that out for sure. But we are excited. I think we're both raring to go with the spoilers and breaking this down.
So this is my favorite movie of all time. I'm glad you liked it.
I will have some criticisms against it. But yeah, no, for the most part, it was very good.
All right, so should we get into spoilers?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether we were like already into spoilers or not.
Yeah, it was definitely treading that territory. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically you got the two bosses. You got Gideon and the other guy played by Ron Perlman. Gideon owns the bowling alley, and Ron Perlman, he owns a nightclub called the Duval.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it. So the movie starts off with Richie. He's like the janitor, if you will. He cleans the toilets, etc. And he comes in late after the nightclub's kind of closed down for the nightclub. And he goes to clean the toilets. He opens all the stools up. And in the last stool, there's a girl dead on the floor. Now, basically what happens is his boss tries to sweep it under the table. He gives him like some drugs, tells him that all is dead.
Yeah, right. So just a quick note. So the girl dead on the floor had like a like the heroin on the ground and like the rope around her arm.
Yeah. So she died of a drug overdose. Yeah.
Continue, man. Sorry about it. Now.
Yeah, that's all good. So yeah, so he tries to like sweep it under the table. He gives him some drugs. He's like, don't tell anyone about this, pretty much. He says it in a subtle way, obviously, not up front. And then
it's a little,
Richie
it's a little
goes,
bit intimidating. It's a little bit like, if you know, like it does that kind of, again, going back to that disingenuous kind of like manipulative, like, hey, you've always been like a, you know, a son to me, and I've always felt like a father to you, and this kind of stuff. And you can feel it's not really genuine. And as he hands him like the drugs, like, and just, you know, forget about this. Don't think about it. Don't talk about this anymore. And I felt quite tense at that moment for Rishi, the Shawn's character.
Yeah, like it's you don't normally go to work and see a dead person.
Yeah.
So after that, he kind of goes home. We find out that, well, obviously the movie opens up with the red water, and he's trying to kill himself in a bathtub by slitting his wrists. So that was previous to him going to work and finding the dead body.
So it kind of keeps bringing up that whole like he's trying to kill himself, and it's something that went through my head the whole sitting. It's just like, can I just die in peace? And like it kept coming back to me, man. It's just like it kind of you felt like this release for him. Like there's this a lot of people put a lot of pressure on Rishi as a character. And you can just see that he's fit, like he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. It's too you can see through, you know, Shawn's fantastic acting that he's worn thin by all of this. And he kind of has this kind of attitude of you know, none of this will matter when I kill myself, kind of thing, you know. Yeah, like, all of this will go away when I'm dead. And, you know, they're like, I'm gonna come for you, or you owe me money. He's like, I'm gonna be dead, man. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
So he goes home after receiving the drugs from his boss, and he starts writing a letter. So he's writing a letter pretty much through the whole movie. He keeps like scribbling it out and rewriting it, etc. And basically, we find out that he's writing it to his dead girlfriend, who he loved very much. And he's basically talking about how he's going to kill himself, and he's coming to see her, and how things aren't going well for him. So he throws the drugs in the toilet, and it's sort of the letters being narrated to us over sort of him doing stuff.
So that fantastic like choir. I can't remember. I don't know the name of the piece. But like, is that like blissful like choir and orchestral? You can see him just like as he's like leaning back in the tub, and he's just like, finally, sweet release from life, and it's quite a fitting choice. Just as a side note, obviously, when I was watching this, I was having lunch while doing so, and I like to eat and watch my films at the same time. I guess it's kind of like when you go to the movies and you have popcorn and that sort of thing. And so I was having some like bacon and eggs, and he was just like all this blood everywhere and like slitting his wrist. I was like, this is not a great idea.
I love like the red around his eyes.
Yeah,
that's good.
Throughout the whole film, and that like definitely reinforces his just like I'm just done. Like you can, like he's just tired. He's fed up with it.
Yeah. So he's writing to his girlfriend, and he's saying like, the drugs don't work anymore. I'm coming to see you. All this stuff, and he's gonna. So he's already done the bathtub thing, which didn't work because he had to go pick up his niece from his estranged sister, who he hasn't spoken to for 5 years. Basically, there's some sort of trouble going on with her, and doesn't really know why, but she can't pick up her daughter.
And she's really like tense over the phone, eh? Like she just like, do this one thing for me, kind of thing. He's just like, and he's like lying in the bathroom, like bleeding out, like just like ready to die. He's just like, okay,
yeah.
Can I just die in peace?
So that kind of plays out, and he tries to kill himself again with medication that he's bought from some sketchy drug dealer guy, which is quite funny. It actually ends up being was it menopause medication?
Menopause.
the guy gets the name wrong and like gives him menopause medication. It seems to be like hard sleeping pills or something.
Yeah, so he finds out at the hotel. Sorry, not the hotel, the apartment where he drops the niece off. And yeah, so he finds out the phone and he breaks the phone, and it really was kind of it added this extra element to the film that the prop got noticed. Like, it wasn't just him throwing a hissy fit and breaking the phone. Like, the people at the behind the counter was like, dude, why did someone break the phone? Yeah. Just like keep coming to bite him. Actually, there's something I just want to touch on. So before he gets to the apartment, and he goes to the play of the niece. Or not the play, rather. She's like reading.
It's like the school talent show at night kind of thing, and like there's different stuff like choirs and stuff. Yeah.
And so his niece is reading like a poem on like the letting a girl, like a lover, go or something like that.
Yeah, Will I Wait for Death by Emily Dickinson. I don't really know.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah.
And you can see like it really affected Rishi because he literally just wrote his own, like, you know, the letter to his lover, to his past lover, and
she's like reciting it.
Yeah. And
then she finishes and she's like, now I will do the whole thing again in Mandarin.
I was expecting that to see some like Mandarin people in the audience to be like, yeah, no, I really get this, but it was just to show off, like, really just to.
She's just like super talented, like just flawless Mandarin.
I suppose that's like what you were saying kind of earlier about, you know, what you like about the film is that like it does have that little kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, like that even though the themes are quite dark, and even though they're like, you could see that really affected Rishi. It was like, this is something he really doesn't want to hear. But just by adding that, it wasn't like a joke, but it was kind of I guess it was a little bit of a joke by the writers, but it also had the double meaning of showing a character trait of the niece. So it wasn't just like a waste of time.
It's weird because if you think about it, in context, if she just recited the poem, like, if you think about it, this like anyone can recite a poem, like it's not really a talent.
Yeah.
So the Mandarin thing kind of made it like, I guess it hit the director kind of wanted this poem because of its meaning to the movie and its themes, but he's like, oh, how do I make it so that it's actually something that you would do at a talent show? Because reciting a poem, like, I don't know, I've never really seen someone do that. It doesn't seem like a talent.
Yeah.
And so how do I do that? Well, so I want the poem. How do I put that into the movie while also making the character seem as though she's really smart and like super talented and stuff? And the way he handled that, I think, was quite good.
Yeah.
So what did you? Sorry, go.
So yeah, just before we move on from that scene, there was some really interesting use of. I don't even want to call it symbolism because it was quite literal, and that because when he went to the recital. He would literally just got out of the bath that he was like trying to kill himself in. So he's still like bleeding out. You can see he's like stumbling. He's like smoking.
He's got like bandages around his wrists that are like bleeding.
Yeah.
It's like a concept theme through the movie where he's like smoking inside and people are like giving him permanent stink eye.
Yeah, but then it goes back to that because he's suicidal. He's just like, man, what are you going to do? Kill me? I'm like, oh, no, do it, please. Like, I'm literally trying to.
Yeah, exactly.
So he looks over at a audience member and sees, you know, someone like dressed as Death. And you see him like kind of like worried for a second. He's like
the Grim Reaper Death, like with his scythe and stuff.
Well, actually, no, I don't want to say he was worried.
It's just like, what was that?
Yeah. Because on the one hand, he kind of wants to die, but death is still a frightening thing. But just for him to see it quite literally, that was quite interesting. Like, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a literal thing.
that was the next thing I wanted to ask about. Is what did you think of the scene with the Grim Reaper, with Death, whether the sound is like muted and they're on that couch?
Yeah,
what did you think of that?
And there's the big like circus poster behind them. So that's another point that I want to. There's a bit of a motif through the film. It felt very theatrical. It felt very like something taken out of theater, and the way that scene was composed. And the reason I bring this up is I used to work in theater for a couple of years as a lighting and sound technician, and the way they constructed that scene kind of really reminded me of that, where it was very minimalist, right? There was just the couch and just this poster behind them. Everything else was black. Very, very reminiscent of small theater. I'm not talking like grand theater. I'm talking like smaller nighttime theater for adults. And Death kind of comes up and just like casually sits next to him and pulls out a newspaper. And I thought it was really cool that he was,
and then it like gets like a McDonald's drink or something with like a straw.
Yeah.
And there's just the sound of him like slurping it. Like all the other sound is like cut off. You like when they talk, you can't hear them
too. Like you could hear that.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah. I liked that Rishi in that scene was mute, and that as like I could see like the sound was like kind of absent.
Yeah, it was almost like when you're watching like a war movie or something, and like a tank shoots.
Yes.
And there's that kind of ringing, and like everything's kind of like you can't hear anything, and then it's a little bit like that, but without the ringing.
Yeah.
Like everything's kind of a bit in slow motion, kind of.
Yeah. So he's kind of in this daze, and he's kind of like just on a small note, like he's kind of in this daze throughout the whole film, because like on the one hand he's like bleeding out. He took some pills to try and commit suicide, but they're just messing with him. But it's funny that it's not really although it's kind of established that he has been a user, but he kind of is he just wants to kill himself now. But it's interesting that there is this certain motif throughout the film that it's kind of like what you would expect to see in some kind of it's LSD man kind of film, but it's not, because he's not actually on drugs. This is just kind of like the hallucinated visions before he kind of kicks the bucket. But
yeah, like so you see him like when he gets up every now and then, and like you'll see like the pinpricks on the inside of his elbow.
Oh, actually, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, like this is the sort of movie that when you watch multiple times, you pick up on heaps of stuff that you didn't. Yeah, so he's portrayed as this sort of drug addict guy who's kind of had enough, but he's not. He never seems like a bad guy. He's made bad choices, but he seems like a good person. He's always portrayed as like a good person. You never see him do something where you're like, oh man, that was a scummy thing to do. Like he always makes, like he always is trying to do right by people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like stealing or like, the usual things you would associate with a drug addict, like stealing money and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's none of that in the movie. It kind of insinuates and points that he has done kind of that sort of stuff in the past, but you don't see it at all.
Yeah, and it does a really good job of insinuating that through like showing rather than telling. Like people offer him money every now and then, and you can tell that in the past he probably would have accepted it, and then he probably would have gone, yeah, actually no, I need that money for drugs or something like that. But he's really changed. He seems to me like a character affected by circumstance. Like everything's acting on him rather than him acting on other characters. So everything kind of bad on the film is kind of like projected on him.
There's just stuff happening around him.
Yeah, and you can see he's got a good sense of morals, like a good. Like he really wants to like do something about his life, but the characters have kind of locked him into the stereotype that he no longer wants to be. They're like, oh, you've been a user in the past, kind of thing. And he's just like, I don't want this anymore. And
I mean, he's written in a way that he's an extremely likable character, even though he's basically a screw up.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's like would be really hard to pull off from scratch. Like just imagining myself trying to write a character that has all these flaws and is basically a screw up in like the dregs of society, but also is a really likable character and kind of infallible morally.
I think there were a couple of times where his decision making kind of to me was really questionable. I was kind of like, man, why are you doing this? But I think as the film kind of went on, it did a really good job of justifying why he wanted to bring his niece to like these really dodgy places, and that he really had nowhere else to go. And again,
so you're talking about the scene where he takes to pick up the flip books.
Yeah, actually, that's the scene I really want to talk about. So, I think if I were to give this film any kind of criticism, it would be the whole flip book motif. Yeah. So it's brought up fairly early on. When he's sitting down and talking to the niece at the bowling alley, I believe. He's kind of saying,
that they're at her apartment, and
right.
He sees the photo on the fridge.
That's right.
And he's like, "Oh, you're an artist. I used to be an artist too." And he like tells her the story. If you want to get into that story,
So that's when it comes up multiple times. So it comes up first there at the apartment. So this is the first time he's dropped the niece off. I believe it's his like second or third interaction with her. And then so he takes her. So he's asked to look after her again, and so he takes her to a bowling alley, and he's reminded again of the flip book. So he takes her to this really
so the
dodgy.
Relevance, just before you get into that, the relevance of the flip books is that basically when he was little, he drew these flip books, and him and his sister, who's Sophia, who's the kid that he's looking after, his mum, they were really good friends when they were little, and he used to draw these flip books about, it was like a cartoon about like a girl that got killed and then she'd come back to life, etc. That's not really important, but the girl in the flip books that he drew was called Sophia, and he makes a comment about, I don't think we knew any Sophias. I wonder if you were named after the character in my flip book from when I was little. Your mum used to really like them. And so that's kind of the significance of it before you get into the other bit.
Yeah. No, you did a good job of explaining that. So he left the flip books at an old apartment of his, or like friends of his, but it's in this really shady area. And so he still has to look after the niece. So he wants to go to this apartment to pick them up. So he takes the niece through these really vulgar images on the wall, like with
there's like heavy metal playing.
Yeah, heavy metal playing, like faces and dark colors, and
it's like stereotypical the place you go to buy hard drugs.
Yeah. And that's probably so when he gets to the door, he tells her to stay outside, obviously, because he knows that this is probably not a place for a kid. But then at the same time, do you really want to leave the kid in the hallway that is as dodgy and shady as that? And then so he goes in there, comes out. He does come out very quickly, so but she breaks down before he comes out, and he does it for the flip books, and you could tell she's scarred by this. That to a young kid, that's really traumatic.
I do wonder about that scene, whether it's actually played from the perspective of her. And so maybe it's not as bad as it's being portrayed. And he obviously knows the people there and he thinks, oh, well, this is actually fine.
Yeah.
And then from her perspective, it's shot in a way that seems really scary and menacing. And I wonder whether that's what he was going for. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Because it definitely does quite a few close-ups. And the whole, you're definitely right. The whole scene is shot from like her perspective, with like the camera right in front of doing a close up on her face as she's walking down the hallways, and whenever it's looking up at the heads and the all the colorful stuff on the wall that's kind of threatening, it's looking up from her perspective as it's moving along. But yeah, so the reason I want to talk about this is probably, to me, it's probably the weakest element of the film, is that he tries to use this flip book to connect with Sophia, which prior to that she was not she was looked down on him quite a lot. She just saw him for like what everyone saw her as, like this used up druggie that is no good and is going nowhere, and she's just constantly hitting on just kind of hitting hard on him for that. And then all of a sudden he shows her this flip book and connects with her in some way. It seemed for me when watching it that quite a jump from her going from breaking down and crying from this traumatic experience of being in an unknown place, left alone, in like what we kind of said was like kind of the typical hard drug dealer kind of area, and then all of a sudden, she sees some flip books and is like, oh, I understand you now. So that for me was probably a weaker element of the film. And it's also, I can get that. Yeah, it's also used at the end of the film to connect with his sister. What's her name?
I can't remember. Sophia's mom.
Maggie.
Okay, yeah,
I believe.
So, yeah, that sounds right.
So Maggie again still kind of upset with him. There's still some past problems between them, but then she sees the flip books that he'd left behind and kind of remembers.
She remembers.
And then that rebuilds the relationship. When to me again, like it was the relationship was quite broken. I guess it wasn't quite as bad because he did try to talk to her and he tried to leave on a good note. And I guess that goes back to him, like he really wants to commit suicide, but he wants to leave everything on a good note. Which
he loves his sister.
Yeah. He does. He definitely cares about her. And that scene where he confesses, like you're the where he kind of confesses that he thinks she's the most awesome sister in the world. That she stood up for him one time when being bullied, and that they used to spend a lot of time together, and that he really cared for her, and she starts like tearing up. I will admit that scene affected me quite a lot. I was really invested with the characters and what they had been through, so I really, really enjoyed that scene.
And the acting was pretty spot on.
Yeah, like, it was definitely spot on. When she was crying, it was like, oh man, that's some real shit. It was so
easy to make that scene seem cheesy, but it wasn't.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't your like put the eye drops into your eye and start crying like her.
It was genuinely emotional. Yeah. After this like roller coaster of freaking crazy shit happening all night.
Yeah, because she'd just been in a police station for 12 hours, and she's very uptight, and she knows that can ruin her career. And she had to turn to like her dodgy brother, and that just seeing how he has changed, I think, really made her like. I think that's why she cried. She was in a way sorry that she had mistook him so badly or assumed the worst of him. When she saw what he was actually stood for and his actual morals, she was kind of taken back a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing about the movie is the first watch. You get this kind of ominous sort of mystery because there's something going on with her mother, but you don't know what. And it's kind of you kind of find out halfway through that she's in jail, but you don't know why she's in jail. You think like maybe she attacked someone or something happened. You don't really know. You don't have that the second time watching it. You start picking up on all the other stuff. But I'd be interested to have your take because I first watched this like maybe 2 years ago now. Right. What was your feel about the way they portrayed the kind of mystery of her mother? There's something going on, but we don't really know, and it's quite tense. And they put like music and key points to like make you like kind of have suspense, if you will.
Yeah. I liked the way they portrayed it visually. So the first time she calls, I believe she's just in her office and she knows she's about to get arrested. She knows she's about to go to prison. So it's the second phone call while Richie is had left Sophia in the apartment, and it doesn't show you right away that she's in prison, but you kind of get this feeling from there's a bit of background sound of guards, keys and lock gates, I guess. I don't know what to call them, but yeah. So you start to get that feeling, and then what I really liked about the shots of that scene while she's on the phone, was the way it a lot of it was close up, but it didn't just keep going back to the same shot. They actually reversed the shot a couple of times as she kind of went from "you need to do this for me, you lazy," like the tone of her voice was like you're a good for nothing brother, but you had to do this one thing for me.
Yeah, just do this one thing. Do one good thing in your life. Yeah, just do one thing right.
Yeah, that was the line. But then when Rishi kind of flipped it on his head and asked, well, where are you? Why aren't you doing this? That's when the camera angle changed and it kind of inverted. I think she actually turned around in that shot, and it was now closer and looking up at her. And she just kind of panicked a little bit. She's like, I can't tell you. She couldn't process what had happened to her. This was kind of out of her realm of believability. Like if the tables had been turned and Rishi was in jail, he would have probably just accepted it. He probably just would have said, I'm in jail right now, and you have to do this for me. But because it was her character, and it said a lot about her character, that she was really ashamed. She was really embarrassed.
Yeah. So if Richie was in jail and he called Maggie, she would have not have done anything. She just basically would have hung up on him. And this is the kind of relationship they have at the moment. And she got pregnant really young, and had Sophia. And with, she basically became
Derek, the useless, good for nothing.
Useless. Yeah. He comes back later. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But so basically she got pregnant young. I think, did she say 17 she had her?
17.
And basically soon after that, she split up with her brother. They had a fight with Derek. Something went on. We don't really know exactly what happened.
Rishi punched Derek in the face at a restaurant.
Yeah. We don't know whether that was why everything kind of broke up, but that was something that happened. And so she's become like this corporate, she works probably like at, I don't know, some big lawyer firm or something. Obviously not a lawyer firm because she's in jail. That would kind of defeat. She works at some sort of big corporate office high up, and she earns quite a lot of money. She has this nice apartment that has these fantastic views over the city and stuff. It's set in New York.
She's definitely a very powerful, independent, female character, actually. Something that they kind of keep kind of occurring to me as it kind of showed the character. She had a very dominating presence. She was obviously very, very capable of looking after herself, but then it puts her in this interesting scenario where she no longer can, and she has to rely on Richie,
who's his screw-up brother, because she doesn't want any of her friends or work colleagues. It's kind of mentioned that she doesn't really have many friends anyway, but she doesn't want anyone to know that she's gone to jail for some reason that we don't know yet. And she's trying to hide it from Sophia as well, because they're both Miss Perfect, and she doesn't want Sophia to be affected by any of this stuff going on, and she's essentially embarrassed, and she doesn't want her work to be affected. So that's why she's relying on Richie, the only one she can talk to about it without it affecting her life.
One thing I kind of want to bring up, because often when you look at characters, you want to look at how they develop throughout a film, or whatever medium that you're watching.
Progression
or or an arc of a character. What I thought was interesting was Rishi doesn't really have an arc. He does develop as a character, but what's interesting is he almost ends in the same place he starts, where he wants to commit suicide again at the end of the film, so that he nothing kind of changed his wanting to actually end himself. but it was his sister and his niece that actually changed. They went from that uptight, straight A kind of person to actually there's more of an emotion, more of a personality to them.
And that turns out is what Richie needs.
Yes.
So it's his family, which is his sister and her daughter, Sophia, that basically cut him off. And it's their progression to accepting him back throughout the movie that ends up being what he actually needs to save him, essentially, from preventing him from committing suicide. Is his family to basically say, look, hey, we love you and we want to spend time with you. Which he basically had no one before that.
Yeah. And actually previously in the film, it was actually the opposite. People were telling, the first time he wants to commit suicide, it's before seeing that lady who OD'd. And he's probably just like, I've had enough of this. And then he gets interrupted. And then he wants to commit suicide again before he gets, I guess it's his drug dealer wanted all that money back. And he's like, oh, now I feel even worse kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that was the delusions. They wasn't actually on the phone to anyone.
Oh, wasn't he? Okay. I thought that was a funny thing. It was just like, whenever I have pills, I have a delusion. Immediately the phone rings.
Yeah. He's like, I especially hate the delusions where I owe people money and then the phone rings and it's someone hitting him up for money.
It was done in a way that I obviously thought it was real, but I wasn't sure, and it was this I don't know whether this is happening or not, and it actually kind of reminds me of the film Memento. I don't know if you've seen that. It's one of Christopher Nolan's earlier films where a character has lost the ability to make new memories, and there's a scene where he's just in a hotel. And he just hears a phone call and he just starts talking on the phone, and he talks on the phone well in the scene. It keeps cutting back to it multiple times throughout the film, and then the way he gets around his ability to he can't make new memories is he tattoos things on his body to remind him, and as he's talking to this person, obviously for a couple of hours, he reads a tattoo on his arm that says, "Don't talk to anyone on the phone," and he's like, "Wait, who is this?" And then it goes quiet, and he puts it back. It kind of reminds me of that, don't go on the phone when you're in this vulnerable state because you might get taken advantage of.
It's definitely, you do, the first time you see it, you do feel is this real, or is it we've just had the narration beforehand about him when he was writing to his dead girlfriend about him not wanting to take pills because he has these hallucinations. And then immediately this happens. So you're thinking, is this real? Because it kind of seems like it might be real, but then afterwards that it wasn't, just because it it drops it and nothing happens in the movie. So that's kind of, I guess, the telltale sign that it was just hallucination. Yeah. And it has that brilliant scene afterwards, obviously, with the masks and the elevator opens and the David Bowie music.
I love that. Train of thought, come back to me. I love his mentality of so the drug dealer wanted $600 or $800. He's like, I thought it was $600. He's like, no, it's gone up. That was yesterday. He's like, I don't care, man. You can make $1,000. I'm gonna kill myself. You're not getting nothing.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm in the building, Richie.
yeah.
They're playing David Bowie music. I can hear it. It's a good song.
Yeah. So it's funny that with all of the bad stuff happening to him, that was just his response. And that was, in a way, he found his safety through his own kind of suicide. But yeah, I want to jump into that into the party scene. So there's a party happening in the hallway or in a neighbor's house. And he goes out and they're all in those masks, and there's David Bowie, and there's real surreal lighting to it.
Some guy dressed as a red owl, paper mache.
And he fist pumps him on the way out. Yeah. But again, he's just taken a whole 20 pills or something like that, and
he's still got the phone on him. He's walking out of his apartment with this corded phone.
Yeah. And he takes that mask off that person who just passed out. I thought that was smart.
Gives somebody the phone and takes the bow and arrow.
Yeah, because I was legitimately, when I was watching, I was sitting there, I was like, how is he going to escape this person? Because I actually thought it was real. I was like, how is he going to escape this person? And then he picks up the mask. It was like, that's so smart. I didn't think of that. Like, you just blend into the environment.
And it's grimy as well, because the person he takes the mask off is like not like this like actor sort of type. It's like this guy who's like full facial acne everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like it's got that really like gritty kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it definitely fits the mood of that scene.
Yeah, he puts the mask on, and it's like this big clock face on his face, and he's like this ticking down in the music, and it's really well done.
I think the music is probably one of the more underrated parts of the film. It was just really good song choice. So when he's in those really those kind of like shady and dirty environments, like at the party and bowling alley and stuff like that, it has that really visceral kind of rock music. So that David Bowie. It does Tame Impala later on, which is kind of like this kind of famous, like, I guess you could say druggy kind of music. It's the kind of music that you would listen to for the experience of it. It just sends you on kind of like a journey, which is kind of like a running theme for kind of that hallucinogenic kind of music.
So half of it is very atmospheric music, and then the other half is like old classics that are used in a really perfect way. Yeah, that don't just seem like you're slapping old classic music in. It's like, well, the scene is built around this song kind of thing.
And like that blissful choir music when he's lying in the bath and it's like, I'm finally going to let myself go, to the piano theme with him and the niece when they're actually bonding. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And when he goes to those parties, there's multiple times he goes to Gideon's house party. The music empowers it. It you can't hear anything over just the booming music, and it captures that so well. Like when you go to a party and you're just overwhelmed by the experiences, and you can see that Rishi just kind of stumbling around and like pushing people out of his way, and really fit it. And I like the reason, like, the film, I want to keep coming back to this because the film does feel very theatrical, and that it's very liberal with its uses of color.
There's a lot of red hues, and
there's a lot of red hues. There's a lot of light blue hues. There's kind of that orangey, browny kind of color when he's in his apartment or in kind of like those rundown places. And it feels very saturated, which I think goes with that whole, like, he's kind of this is like an experience to him. This is like a full-on trip to him, but it's not, because he's not really on any hallucinogenic drugs. He's just
and that's that point is driven home when he like throws the drugs out and says, look, the drugs don't work anymore. He was like given a bunch of I don't know what it is, but he puts it in the toilet and he flushes it down. And that like it reinforces the point he's not on any drugs at the moment, although he does take like a whole like bottle of menopause medication. Other than that, he's fine. And I guess he does have a drink like with Gideon when he's like interrogating him. You're like, which that was questionable because he's looking after Sophia. Well, but initially he's like, no, I don't want any.
Yeah. That's another scene where, other characters are acting on him, and he's just kind of like he's just trying to respond to everything that's happening to him. So Gideon just kind of getting all up in his face and asking him, to Gideon, these are fairly innocent questions. Just like, hey man, have you like, obviously it was a bit more threatening, but it's like, have you seen my girlfriend? We had a little bit of a fight, and
it's insinuated throughout the whole movie that both his boss at the Devou and the boss at the bowling alley, which is Gideon, they're both Bill. Yeah, Bill. They're both drug dealers. It doesn't really blatantly tell you that they are. I guess it does with Bill at the start when he hands him the drugs, and he's the nightclub owner. That's a bit more. But the bowling alley guy is like, well, it's a bowling alley.
It's a little bit more underhanded. Like,
Yeah, you
throughout
don't
that
know whether he's a
conversation-
drug dealer or not, but I think he is.
Well,
There's
throughout
that
the
scene where
conversation,
that
he's like
guy's
he's sniffing coke. Before he, throughout.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't-
When he was
I
talking to
noticed
Gideon,
that.
he was standing at a table. So he had his back
Yeah.
turned to Rishi, right? Where Rishi was on the couch, and he would ask Rishi a question. Rishi would be kind of stumbling out his answer. It was about his missing girlfriend, which Rishi knows is dead. It was the girl at the star in the stall, and then you just kind of hear like Gideon like constantly like, throughout that. Just
I noticed
big
that, but then
sniffing.
I was like, he like talks about his girlfriend that like he doesn't want his friends knowing she's on heroin, and
Yeah.
like so I'm like, oh well, we can't be taking cocaine then because like what. He's like, oh, I don't even tell my friends that because I'm so embarrassed that she takes heroin.
I think it's implied later on that his girlfriend doesn't want to be seen as that, but obviously he's in that, like, the cronies like kind of around him obviously just kind of reinforce that he is that kind of type. Because so the later
and there's that scene where that guy like randomly takes that like looks like a tea bag out of a bowling ball. He's like polishing the bowling ball. I'm pretty sure that's drugs, so it's something like that.
Might as well jump into that scene when Bill when he sits down and talks to Rishi and his niece.
Okay, so before we get to that, the reason he gets interrogated by, that's one of my favorite scenes, by the way, so I just want to like set it up.
Right. I completely missed Gideon. I'm sorry, I got excited.
We haven't gotten to the point about Gideon when he's interrogating Richie. Basically, the girl who died in the store is Gideon's girlfriend. And he knows that Richie was working at the Deveau the night before. His girlfriend went there. He's lost contact with his girlfriend. Doesn't know where his girlfriend is. He's like freaking out. So he's telling Richie that his girlfriend is missing and he loves her, and he like all this like.
But he relates to Richie because Richie had a girlfriend that obviously he loved a lot. Yeah, and that goes back to that disingenuous thing again. You're not sure if he's actually being serious or if he's just trying to like pump Rishi for information.
Yeah, and then so Richie's like, okay, yeah, whatever, and then he's like, have I ever found out what happened to her? I'll torture the guy. I'll flay his skin alive and I'll burn him to death.
Yeah,
and Richie's like, whoa, crap, okay, and then so he shows a picture of her on his phone. And it's the girl from the night before, and Richie suddenly realized, oh shit! But he can't tell him because his boss who works at the Deveau, Bill, he told him not to tell anyone. He's like, oh crap.
Yeah, but even if he told Gideon, he's not sure if Gideon's just going to kill him.
Yeah, he's going to flip out on him. He's like acting like schizophrenic.
But Rishi, I think it hurts his character that he has to lie. You can see the tension on him, and it's not just that classic like movie acting where it's like, oh, I'm nervous and I don't. Yeah, he's actually his motives are torn here. On the one hand, he doesn't want to lie. He doesn't want to betray his like code of honor, kind of, so to speak. But on the other hand, he
his hands are basically tied because his boss is like subtly threatening him that he could end up the same way as the girl in the stall if he tells anyone. He never says anything like that, but you get that kind of idea. Like, you can't tell anyone this is. I mean, it's drug stuff. Yeah, you don't fuck with drug stuff.
Yeah, I think because I had a thought initially of it was obviously that threat where Gideon was like ready to kill someone. And I kind of had this thought of, why doesn't Rishi just tell him? Because, I mean, he wants to die anyway, but he has to look after his niece. So it's like, he can't die yet. It's that before I disappear, I have to look after her. But I guess on the other hand, he doesn't really want to be tortured before he goes out. He just...
Yeah. The guy's like choking him, and there's just this really uncomfortable sound of his neck.
Oh, yeah.
Like
rasping. Leather being like ripped, but it's like his flesh. Like the...
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Gideon was definitely an interesting character. I really enjoyed Gideon on screen. Like, young entrepreneur, but kind of twisted by the drug culture he kind of surrounded himself in.
It kind of looks like that Twilight guy.
I think it is.
The guy that is it? No, I don't think it is. It just looks like him. I don't think it. I checked.
Oh, okay.
I was like, is that the Twilight guy? But no, it's not. He just kind of like looks like him. It's the same hair and stuff.
I legit thought it was.
No, it's not.
But yeah, I mean, like even he gets his security guards to look after the niece while he's talking to Rishi, and you see like these really big, bulky dudes just like sitting around this little schoolgirl, just like she's trying to do her homework in the bowling alley. Just
So we'll get into a scene. I think this chronologically this makes sense before going to that scene.
Yeah, sorry, I did get excited. I did try to jump ahead there.
that scene is brilliant. But my other favorite scene is this scene now. This is the kind of turning point in the movie where up until this point, Sophia and Richie have kind of been pretty hostile to each other. And this is the kind of turning point where they kind of become more friends and she like starts really liking him. So they're at the bowling alley and a song comes on, and it's actually a song by Shawn Christensen. Yeah. I think he has a band or something called Goodnight Radio, and this song is by his band. And it was pretty brilliant actually. Basically a dance scene where we didn't mention it, but the actor who plays Sophia is obviously a pretty huge talent herself. Like there's a scene earlier on in the movie where she's like doing gymnastics and she does like this like quadruple backflip thing. And like it's like all one take. It's not like cut. She's obviously done it. Like the actor's done it.
Yeah.
And then she's speaking Mandarin, and I'm pretty sure that was her as well.
Yeah. Actually, going back to that, she like good. She had proper pronunciation, and I mean, I don't speak Mandarin, but
and it didn't sound like dubbed or anything.
No, it wasn't slurred or anything. Yeah, no, she definitely fits the part without a doubt.
So anyway, so the song comes on and she stands up and she goes, oh no, before that, this is the whole thing of the scene is they're talking about something and she goes, what happened to you and mum? And he goes, we changed. I became a bad person. And she goes, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're a stupid person. and then he like kind of half smiles, and then the song comes on, and it's kind of portrayed in a way that like represents like, he's like been in this really dark place, and finally someone like hasn't even really said that she likes him, but just showing just a little bit of affection for him.
Yeah.
And it's like this rising music, and it like everything like starts seeming like it might be okay for him, and like there's like this dark dance sequence, like it sort of goes into like a dream sequence where everyone's like dancing and
yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's a really well done, I reckon. She's like going down the bowling alley, and it's a dream sequence and not like they're not actually doing this.
I didn't right away when she was walking down the bowling alley. I was like, this is a bit extreme. I don't. And then like everyone else started dancing along. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and also like if you actually walked on a bowling alley, you would slip over straight away. So it's like actually a dream sequence because of that fact. And she's like doing like cartwheels, and she does like the splits in her dance.
Yeah.
I really love when a movie does like a little dance sequence like that. There was another movie that I watched a few years ago called Ex Machina.
Oh,
have you seen that?
Yes.
Like the robot girl thing.
Yeah.
And there's that sequence where there's like the creator guy and the other android, and they're like dancing. Right. Yeah. It reminded me of that. I really love when movies do that. I don't like musicals or like movies that are like that, but when they have just like this little dance sequence of a bit of music, and I really like when movies do that. And I think this one did it perfectly. And also it all flowed into the point of Richie starting to feel better. And
it's kind of interesting that when they initially meet, when Richie meets Sophia, they hate each other. Like they really despise each other, and I think they both lacked any kind of companionship or like friendship. So for them to start getting along and start understanding each other's plight and why they are the way they are. I think it's what Rishi started to need. It was a little bit of hope that he just did not have prior to that.
At all. He was in a bad place.
Yeah. I'm glad that it didn't kind of say he was in a bad place. it showed you he was in a bad place. It showed you
It
the way
really
people,
showed you.
yeah, the way people were treating him. Like when he went back to his like apartment, it was just like all crappy and falling apart, and his expression tells a lot as well.
So now he goes to the Devoe, and he goes to see his boss. They're sitting at this table. They're eating some, I think he's eating ribs and like Chinese food. Yeah. Do you want to maybe get into explain it a bit?
Yeah. So this scene was really interesting because it was when Rishi really started to piece together what had happened the night before. Because obviously he just kind of put it out of his mind, and he's just like ready to kill himself, and then he had to look after his niece. And then when he was sitting there next to opposite Bill, and Bill was just kind of very politely talking to his niece. I was expecting some kind of threatening kind of character out of him, but you could see there was actually a bit of sympathy there in Bill's character. And he started, talking. You could see, I think when Bill started to talk about the night before, and it was really tense, and there was regret, he was really anxious. That was when Rishi started to piece together how the lady had died in the stall the night. And then it does a fantastic way of revealing this by doing it through, again, that theatrical presentation. Like, minimalist background. The background was black, just the table, just the chairs, just the actors. Very, very, very reminiscent of theater. And it transitions into this seamlessly, by the way. It took me a moment to realize what was happening. And it's I believe it's all like one shot almost. And then, the lady is there, and then it just starts doing the conversation that Bill had with her the night before she goes, and then she gets up. She gets the drugs from Bill, and there's obviously some background between these two. Like they'd obviously probably had a relationship before. Like Bill makes the offhand comment that Gideon was just a boy, and if she wanted a real man, she knew who to go to. Obviously, insinuating himself. And she said, you're such a creep. You're a disgusting, filthy pig. And that's probably why she's with Gideon. So there was obviously something between them, but she after that fight, she needed something to kind of clear her mind or to get over it. She's like that distraction, and she wanted some drugs. And then she gets up, goes to the stall where Richie actually gets up and follows her, and then sees what happens, and then it flashes back to when he sees her dead for the first time. And that was really cool that he the first time it shows you her dead on the ground, you see her dead, the heroin, and a cracked phone. And initially he picks up the phone, he checks it and puts it back, but you don't see what he looks at. But this time in the flashback, you do actually see, and it makes sense now because you know that she's in a relationship with Gideon, and you can see her typing out a message, apologizing for the fight and forgiving him. But she passed out,
and she says
died.
that she loves him, right?
Yeah,
she goes, "I love you," and it's all kind of like spelt wrong and like she's drunk kind of thing.
Yeah,
which I thought was quite a nice touch.
And it shows
questionable
character.
That she has no lock screen, no password on it. Questionable, but it happens.
I'm willing to forgive that.
Yeah, like some people don't have passwords, I guess.
I don't. But what's interesting is that Rishi actually tried to send the message. That says something about him because he had lost his own girlfriend, and that he wanted that message to be sent to Gideon to kind of clear the air. So
he's pressing the button to send it, but obviously it's a dream sequence, so it doesn't work, and then he snaps back to reality. So the fact that she said "I love you" is actually quite significant to a theme running through the movie as well that we'll get into. But I'm glad that you spoke what you thought about this scene, because I thought this scene is probably the best scene in the movie. It's brilliantly done. Just everyone's acting was on point. Ron Perlman,
man. He nailed it.
if you know anything about him, he's got a very distinctive facial structure, like this massive jaw, this gravelly, rough voice just nobody has a voice like that. His performance
he's like
is
if you started
incredible.
like you're like your molar at home, and then you put a voice inside that. That's what he sounds like. Yeah, I didn't mean to do anything to her. Like, I can't even. I don't know how you do that.
Fantastic. And then just technically the way it was shot, like I think it's all one take, and they just use lighting to switch from reality to the dream sequence.
Yeah.
The transitioning is perfect. It's just so well done. Like, I can't.
Again,
it's just perfect.
It is very theatrical. With that one take, with the lighting dimming.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has that that 90-degree kind of like you're the audience and they're sitting in front of you kind of feel to it. It really works for the scene. I have not seen a flashback portrayed like that before, and it really, really worked for me. It really did appeal.
Yeah, that's a great example of this movie throws together a whole lot of really unique scenes, like the scene that's all muted and quiet with the Grim Reaper death on the couch. And this one, just all these interesting scenes that do these like sort of really unique things that I haven't seen a lot in other movies before. It just throws them all together and basically throws a bunch of crap at the wall and see what sticks. Most of it does, I'd say. Especially this scene, I thought it was fantastic. So when they walk out after this, so basically he's in the stall with the dead girl. And he's pressing the button on the phone to send the message to Gideon, but it doesn't work, and he snaps out of it. And you find out, it was dream sequence. So he says that he's gonna leave. He kind of has sort of a bad exchange with Bill. He says, I can't remember exactly, but he doesn't like him.
So after he realizes that she died from his hand and that he's trying to cover it up, he's like, I don't want to be here anymore, and this is not a good place for his niece either. And then he realizes that he doesn't care if you fire me. Like, that's it. I'm out. It's interesting that Bill tries to grab him after that and sees the cut wrist. And
some perfect dialogue right there. After when he grabs his wrist, sorry. And he basically looks at it and figures out what's been going on with Richie in his head, and then says something along the lines of, "It's a perfect quote. I wish I could quote it.
Death is sown into you, and everything you do has an element of death of it, or something like that."
He says, the funny thing about you, Richie. Death lives in you. It's in your bones. It's sewn into your very fabric. It's not just a destination for you. It is you. I'm not giving it justice, but just the way it's delivered, it's just perfect. It has some real emotional impact to it.
But he's spot on. It's a good assessment, because that has been him throughout the whole film. Everything has been revolving around he just wants to die, but death won't let him. That scene where he's sitting next to Death and he's like tapping him on the shoulder. He's like, hey, can I die? And like Death like looks over at him and says, nope. He's like, no.
So they leave, and this kind of signals the end of Bill or Ron Perlman in the movie. He basically only has two scenes. He has the scene at the start and this scene. He's not in it very much, but when he is in it, he is brilliant. He has one short phone conversation, but there's nothing really going on there. So that pretty much ends that. Now, my third favorite scene in this, or maybe my fourth, so it's the one with the masks, with the David Bowie song, the dance sequence, the scene at the table with Ron Perlman, and then this is my fourth favorite scene. So basically they're in the street, and he faints basically against the wall.
Yeah, he's like that. Are you okay? He's like, I'm fine. Just like collapses.
Yeah.
He's like, uh-oh.
So it's basically like a combination of the menopause medication and the fact that he's like got slit wrists, that he's been bleeding out all night.
Yeah.
So he's like on the wall. He's like, oh, I'm all right. He's like obviously about to faint, and then he does. Sophia runs off to buy something from the pharmacy to help him. There's a little bit of Deus Ex Machina there. She like gets some sort of crap, and
she's really smart. She knows about first aid, like.
Yeah, but the scene's so brilliant that you kind of you suspend your disbelief because there's a few things in the movie like that. Like, why is there a random telephone on his floor by his bathtub?
yeah.
But the movie's good, so we won't think about that. So she runs off to go to the pharmacy. He's basically fainted on the ground, and there's this like fantastic scene where like the light shines in his eyes, and it's like when you're dying and you see the light, kind of thing. And he's like squinting, and then the light turns off, and across the street is his girlfriend. I forgot her name. Is it Rachel?
Vista.
That's right. She's got a cool name. And she's sitting there with like this open record player, like in like a suitcase thing. Yeah. She's got like headphones on, and there's like I'm pretty sure there's like some really nice music playing. I can't remember exactly.
It's very somber. The whole feeling of that scene is very somber. And you feel like it makes you feel how much he loves her. Like he loves her so much, and he misses her so much. And it's probably the reason why he became a drug addict and like pretty much caused everything, is the fact that this person that he loved so much died, and he had no one left in his life, including his family. So he sees her across the street. She's like listening. It's insinuated that she's like in heaven or she's in some sort of afterlife. And he's going to be there soon. And so he crosses the road. He sits down next to her. They don't talk or anything. They just hold hands. And it's just like a really beautiful, emotional scene. That's hard to describe, but the cinematographer did a fantastic job of them. How he sits down next to her and very quietly, not even making eye contact, and she just kind of reaches out her arm very slowly, and he goes and grabs it. And when they hold, there is that moment of tension, and I love how it's held for the right amount of time, just to let that really like soak in. Like he really wants to be with her again, and it's that's the whole point of his letter, right? Continuously like. And it always finishes in Vista, I will see you soon, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I loved that shot. I'd make a wallpaper out of that shot.
It was. There's a lot of shots of this movie that are like this. This is aesthetic. Yeah. But yeah, and that one in particular. So he wakes up, and Sophia's like rattling him and stuff, trying to wake him up. And there's like some random hobo there.
Yeah. I love it. He's like watching. He's like, dude, this guy just died. Like just sitting next to him. He like pulls him up a little bit. He's like, okay, I'll help you out.
Yeah. She like puts the Deus Ex Machina on his wrist, and he like goes,
this one, you need to go to the hospital, but this will do for now. Like,
yeah. And then she like gives him some speech about, she's obviously at this point realizing that, look, he tried to commit suicide, and all this stuff. He wants to kill himself. He's really depressed. She gets it now. She understands him a lot more at this point. And she starts telling him about, you may want to go, but what about me? Think about me. If you die, think about how this affects me. How is Sophia going to go on all her little adventures? Referencing again back to the flip books where Sophia went on her adventures.
Mm-hmm. And it actually, I once had a friend once tell me that he thinks that suicide is really selfish, and the way he justified it was, you're only really thinking about yourself when you do it. You're doing it for your own reasons, but you fail to think about how it will affect your friends, your family, your parents, your brother and sister, how much it would affect them negatively. And it really, I got reminded of that when Sophia was trying to wake up Rishi, that, like this, you're just doing this for yourself, but think about how it affects, it would affect me, how it would affect your sister. like we still care about you, and how it's interesting the contrast of her character from the start of just thinking he's an absolute waste of space, that he's just trash, to this point now where she really does care about him, and that he is one of her only friends, and that he's actually shown her some actual generosity and kindness. And
she hasn't had a father figure
yes,
in her life, and
yes,
that is the next thing we'll get to. But it's well done. And he says he kind of dismisses her. He's like, Sophia's going to have a lot of adventures no matter what. Obviously referencing the fact that she's a brilliant person, like she's just so talented, and like no matter what happens, like she's not going to get screwed up. She's got a great life ahead of her.
The flip book.
Yeah, he was at the same time. It was the same, like it was used reference book. I'm saying Sophia's going to have a lot of adventures, but then so it's sort of like is vignette the right word? I don't know.
A vignette is when you have the corners of a screen kind of darkened to make it seem more like old.
So like a double entendre, but not like lyrics.
Well, that's a word.
Yeah. So yeah, it has sort of like a double meaning.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was well done. The next scene is, so it leads into this by saying, she goes, "Oh, well, you're way better than my dad," who is his sister's ex. I don't even think they were married. They were just like in a relationship.
So yeah. So so they had a kid together while she was still 17. And he despised the kid, which is Sophia, calling her, an accident, and like should have been aborted, and
failed abortion,
and
like in front of his friends and stuff, like making fun of it, because she goes and stays with her dad in the weekends or something. Yeah. And Richie has had a bad past with this guy as well. Like he's hated him from the very beginning. Referenced earlier in the movie, he punches him at some restaurant in the face while they're having dinner. That was possibly why that his sister and him like have been estranged, but we don't really know exactly the full details of that.
But you don't really need to know to be honest.
Yeah, that's the brilliant thing about this movie. It works on not knowing a lot. You kind of get a little bit, but you don't know the full picture, and there's pretty much the whole movie revolves around that idea. So basically, he hears that Sophia has been called a failed abortion and stuff, and like he already doesn't like the guy, and so he gets really angry and he asks, does he still work at this music shop down the street or whatever? It seems a little bit like
it was definitely abrupt to me. Yeah, I think that.
I don't know about you, but a music shop's open late. That seemed a little.
Yeah, that did seem really weird.
I mean, maybe in New York, with like a big music scene or whatever, they had like a workshop and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. So that would be the second criticism of the film. The first was that it relied quite heavily on the flip book to kind of progress the characters forward. And the second one was this just kind of, they go into the music store and he just assaults Derek, basically. Yeah. He just kind of walks in and just whacks him.
So I liked this scene and I didn't like this scene. This is probably my least favorite scene in the movie. Mainly because it wasn't as well done as the rest of the movie. And I think that was mainly a budget thing.
Yeah.
I liked it because this is like totally something I would do. If it was someone had like done something really bad to someone I love, I would like go and like try to beat them up. This is something that I could see myself doing, and so I liked it from that point of view. This is like how I would react.
Yeah.
Maybe not just because someone called someone a failed abortion. Yeah. It'd have to be something like a little bit more serious than that. But he had history with the guy, so I don't know. But the thing I didn't like about it is the fight scene was kind of not good.
I actually disagree with you there. I think the fight scene was the best part of it. The fight scene, I don't know how many fights you have been in, but whenever I've been in a fight, it is never clean cut. It is always this messy, scrappy, awkward occasion where he's just kind of grasping for the person, and you can't really get a nice clean punch, just kind of whacking the person however you can, and you just kind of wrestle them to the ground, and you kind of like trying to choke them kind of, but with whatever you can find. That to me that worked for me. I dislike the whole action trope where they go to do a punch and then the camera angle like moves in and you just see this perfect punch just like smack them in the face, and like that's not how fights look, man. Fights are
usually the first punch at least is a clean hit, and then it kind of gets a bit scrappy.
It depends. Like if the other person's caught off guard, then definitely the first punch can be clean. But I don't think a punch is ever clean. I mean the face is just a weirdly shaped thing. Like if you really think about it. So I like the awkwardness of it. To me, that felt very real to have these two people just kind of wrestle with each other. Because Derek doesn't really know what the hell's going on. He knows who Rishi is, but he was not expecting Rishi just to show up out, in the middle of nowhere and just at the end of his job, at the end of his shift. And he's like, oh, all of a sudden, here's to defend himself.
Well, I don't know. It just seems, the guy, her dad, the guy that he's fighting, seems way better shape than him. Like he's got like his shirt pulls up at one point. He's got like abs and stuff. And so I don't know. He seems quite short, but other than that, he seems in pretty good shape. Whereas Richie seems kind of pudgy, tall and pudgy. Like not fat or anything, just not like. He's a drug addict.
Not really a fighter.
He's not in good shape. Plus, he's freaking just passed out from being. He's got sliced wrists. He's on medication. And maybe that is why that he fights kind of weirdly. It's just like all the sections where it's like, he had a clean shot there. He's like hitting him, but he's like hitting him really weird. Like he's not punching him. Like that time where he's got him grabbed and he's like hitting him in the stomach or something, like a bunch of times, but he's like not actually punching him. He's like hitting him with his wrist. I don't know. It just looks really weird.
Well, that's actually, I forgave that a bit more because that's part of that's a stage combat thing. Is that when you go to hit someone off stage, on stage, sorry, you're never supposed to be close to them, or when you go to hit them, your hand is never supposed to get close to them.
Well, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was more like a budgetary thing to because they didn't have the budget to do like a proper scene that looked like they were actually punching, and so they had to not hurt each other, and therefore it looked a little bit like they weren't actually punching each other properly. They were just kind of hitting them with their wrist. That's what I didn't like about it. Because maybe it's because
he ends up on the ground and he like pulls this like little piano out of nowhere.
Just starts like choking him.
Like where did that come from?
That just seemed a bit weird as well. I mean, the movie's quirky, so maybe it was something like that. But after the fact that I'd see the punching that looked kind of weird and they were kind of like scrappling on the ground. And like I've actually had a lot of, maybe it's the fact that I've had a lot of fights that actually have played out like that action trope thing where I've punched the guy in the face, not broken his nose, blood's everywhere, he doesn't even fight back kind of thing. By the way, guys, I don't cause fights with people because for no reason. Like it's always in retaliation. It's always self-defense or someone said something very bad to me or something like that.
Violence.
But I've had a bunch of those sort of fights where it's like I've hit the guy, clean shot in the face, broken his nose, he goes down kind of thing. I've had that, that's like real life experiences I've had. So maybe that doesn't happen a lot and that seems unrealistic to you. I don't know. By the way, I don't get in any fights nowadays. This is when I was in like high school and primary school and stuff.
Such a rebel back in the day.
Back in the day, when I was a young boy. So that was my weakest scene in the movie. I think the rest of the movie, flaws aside, pretty stellar. That felt a bit under par for me. But obviously you liked it. You thought the fight was like realistic and stuff.
Yeah, but it's definitely. I agree with you. It's definitely the weakest part of the film. In fact, if I were to say, if a producer were to come to me and say this film needs to be 10 minutes shorter, that'd be the first thing to cut. I don't.
Although one of the coolest things in the movie afterwards, when he gets up and that freaking music plays. I've got the list of it here. What is it? House of the Rising Sun.
Oh wow!
Awesome song. I had never heard it before. It's obviously a classic song. But just perfect for the moment. He like walks out in slow motion. Me describing it kind of sounds like really tropey and not good, but the way it's done and it just comes together, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's like this badass walking out, and he grabs the hand of Sophia and he's like walking out with her, and everyone's like looking at him, like throwing up their hands.
Yeah. Like, what the hell, man? It's all like they're all just blurred out and just it doesn't matter.
I thought that was quite cool, but it was kind of after the scene that I thought was not so good, so it was kind of like a mixed bag.
I suppose that scene makes a bit more sense to me when you brought up that he's a bit of a father figure to Sophia.
Yeah.
That he wants to protect her.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he follows that scene by taking her home, is that right? To the apartment?
Yeah. Well, and also, like, dads are protective, so if he's potentially, like, if he thinks of himself as her father figure in some way, and then your daughter's being like abused by someone, it's questionable whether she was abused in any meaningful way. I mean, name calling, I don't know whether you beat up a guy over that, but that's kind of a dad's reaction, is especially if it's someone his own age.
Yeah. And the kind of things he was saying, like to tease, like just about her, is just that.
They were pretty nasty.
That's uncalled for.
Yeah. But it wasn't like she was being like physically abused or anything.
No.
I can immediately understand that reaction if that was happening. I don't know about the name calling, but it wasn't very pleasant nonetheless.
Yeah. So then we get back to the apartment and we see the two guys and they've got a new phone and they're like busy trying to plug it in.
Yeah. So he gets kicked out. Actually, there's a little scene I want to talk about just before this. I just want to get it's a very short scene. I just wanted to see what you thought of it. I quite liked it. I thought it was funny. It's the scene where she's in the toilet and there's like the two women like knocking on the door, and he's like, can you please stop doing that? And he keeps saying that, and they keep knocking on the door, and it cuts and it like hard. Yeah, and it like keeps hard cutting, like he's been there ages, and they keep knocking, like you can see the cut. Yeah. And then eventually like screams at them and tells them to shut the hell up, you fat cows, and stuff. And they just like stand there with like their mouths open, and then Sophia walks out of the toilet and like he puts the comb in her hair and grabs her hand and they walk off. And
he's still got his like his fists cupped out, right? It's like can you just shut up? And he's got them out, and he holds them there, and then like Sophia comes out, like grabs his hand, like puts the fists down. He's like, okay, you're right.
Yeah. And then like they just the way they're portrayed, they just annoy you so much. The women, they're like,
just
perfect stereotypical like annoying drunk woman, like chewing gum,
just
at the same
incessantly
time.
like just knocking on the door. I think that because Rishi didn't really have much of an arc, I think that's part of his character progression, is that he started off, very quietly. Hey, can you please be quiet? And then he got louder and louder and louder. It was, usually he seems like the kind of guy that is a bit submissive.
Like he's not confrontational, but when he gets pushed, he is. Yeah,
but I think so it showed that he was ready to become a bit more confrontational. That he's this whole journey, this whole experience of this last couple of days is really starting to shape him into someone who wants to take charge and take action, as opposed to prior to that, it seems like a lot of people have just influenced him and impacted him. So now he's kind of grabbing the reins, so to speak, and charging forward.
Yeah. So cut back to, they go back to the apartment, and the phone thing, basically the doorman, I guess, I don't really...
This
sort of an American
thing. Really odd. This I thought was really, really odd. It would have made more sense to me for them to catch him in the foyer when they're plugging in the new phone.
Well, the backs are like turned to him, and he's like talking to the security guard guy.
Yeah. But the reason I say this is because it seemed odd that they went to that room, because he doesn't live there, by the way. His name isn't on that place.
Well, they were obviously looking at the footage, and then they like saw him walk up or something. I don't know.
So that was a bit odd, but they needed to. I think they just needed to kick him out to progress the story. So that
and it did feel a little bit odd because he's like, Sophia's like, he puts her to bed, and she's like, "Oh, are you going to stay here, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to be in the room over." Yeah. And then they knock on the door and kick him out.
Yeah.
And then
it's not like he was like, "Hey, I would pay for that. Sorry, guys." It was just like, "Oh no, we're kicking you out." Like,
that's kind of funny that his dialogue though. He's like, "I was on a whole bottle of menopause medication," and they just like look at him like, "What the hell, man?" So basically, they kick him out, say he can't come back. It's a little bit weird because of the next scene, and then he comes back with the mum. And then he goes up to the apartment, and they're fine now, apparently. I don't know what that's about. Maybe the mum explains that he's her brother and it's okay.
Yeah.
And then he comes back, and then there's a bit of dialogue that happens. But the point of it is, Sophia's not upset that he wasn't there when he comes back with the mum. So obviously she knows that he like went out and left her in the apartment when he said he wasn't going to. But there's no like mention of that. That was a little bit weird.
No.
But as far as the way the story progresses, it's kind of it's minimal.
So they needed him to leave anyway because he needed to go pick up the his sister from the police station.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as he was sitting there. This is probably something that we've kind of just glossed over a little bit. So the reason his sister is in the police station was she got into a fight with Derek.
Yeah. No. I don't know. No. The person that she got in a fight with.
Oh, was someone else?
I think someone at her work.
Right. So she was having an affair with someone at her work.
Yeah. So she's single, by the way.
Yeah.
So she's split. But the guy was having an affair with her, kind of thing. She was the other woman.
Yeah. And then they must have. You're not shown, but they must have been in an argument. And he hit her, and she went to prison.
Not prison. They're in like they didn't like go to jail.
Is it like
they were like
or something?
They were like in the police station kind of thing, like in a cell.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like some stuff going on, and that's kind of the tension through the whole movie. You don't really know what's here, but at this point you do. She's it kind of deflates it a little bit. It's kind of like they've had this tension the whole time, and then it ends up being not anything much. Like, I think I like the way they did it because it gave this kind of excitement through it that you didn't know what it was, and it wasn't really anything that huge in the end. But you said you don't really feel that bad about it because you had this nice sort of tension through the whole movie.
Yeah, it kind of gave you a mystery to solve kind of thing. Like,
it wasn't like a letdown per se. I described it as that, but I guess it's not really like that at all. But it's less than you think it is going to be. It's not as interesting. It's just like, oh, well, she was having an affair. Okay, well, that's typical kind of thing.
I thought it was kind of odd that they so there's the wife of the guy that Maggie was having an affair with, that shows up once the first time he goes to the apartment.
Yeah,
and then she's just sitting there outside the police station when he goes to pick up Maggie, so Rishi kind of sits down and just kind of has to talk with this wife, which I thought was kind of weird. It's one of those things I don't think was necessary for the film, but I guess it was just a little flavoring, just a little bit of world building.
It was kind of funny. He's like, "What were you gonna do?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know, stab her in the eye with a pen."
Yeah, it's kind of odd. It kind of doesn't really go anywhere. Like, she just kind of says that, and then she like gets
Well, it makes sense. Like, in the moment, she was so angry, and she wanted to attack this lady that had been sleeping with her husband.
I understand the statement.
And then when they're on the steps, she's like settled down a bit, and she's...
Yeah. Like, I understand the statement, but it seemed pretty weird that she waited there at the police station till, 4 a.m?
No, so she obviously come to get... It had been established that they were being released at the specific time, and so she'd probably just arrived before Richie, like not long before Richie came, kind of thing. That's what I take it as. Like Richie just turned up to pick up his sister. She turned to pick up her husband.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of like a good thing again that, you know, Rishi kind of protecting his sister and his niece throughout the film. I always feel like maybe if Rishi wasn't there, maybe she would have attacked Maggie. But I think just Rishi being there just kind of, you know, diffused
the situation.
Yeah. So yeah, then he picks up his sister. They go back to the apartment, and I believe that's the scene that they break down. Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't know what Sophia's doing at this point. Whether she's asleep.
Sophia's just asleep.
Yeah, she's asleep.
Because I mean, she's been out.
She
all
like gives
night.
her mum a hug, and then she like goes back to bed.
Yeah.
At some point in the movie, Sophia has told Richie, she's read his letter that he's been writing all the way through the movie and rewriting it. She's told Richie that she had taken his letter and read it, and she goes, "It's a love letter, right? It's someone you love. You're writing to someone you love."
Yeah.
And he kind of is dismissive, and she goes, "The reason you keep rewriting it doesn't work. It's because you forgot to tell her that you love her."
Yeah. Which you can understand why he hasn't, because it is the letter to his lost girlfriend, and it's funny that it got interpreted like that, which it definitely could be. You know, I'll see you soon, and I've been kind of thing.
Yeah, and she obviously doesn't quite understand the whole fact that like she's dead, and this is why he wants to kill himself, kind of thing.
And then Rishi doesn't really want to tell her his niece. Yeah,
and well, obviously it's a pretty dark subject for a little girl, but yeah, so this is these little bits throughout the movie. There's this thing. This is only something I really picked up on, like maybe my third watching of the movie. So she says that about you forgot to say you love her, and you know. So there's the scene where the dead girl is in the toilet stall on the floor, and she's tried to say I love you to the guy.
Yeah,
and then also when Sophia's mum comes back and they hug, and she puts her to bed, and she goes I love you. And there's all these little things through the movie that's like little pinpricks of just reinforcing this fact of all these people that have proper maybe not the dead girl, but she didn't actually send the text at the end, did she?
How to actually maintain a relationship. As opposed to the people who have just let it kind of decay over time.
Yeah. And I'm not exactly sure where that sort of thread is going, but it's something interesting to pick up on.
It seems to wrap up the film and how... because a lot of the film is based on Rishi trying to let go of his lost girlfriend, and so that kind of concludes the last scene, right? You know, we jump into that emotional scene.
So
that we
Sophie's
talked
in
about
bed
previously. And so that scene was really gripping, and you know, I was really invested with the characters by this point. You have seen the hardship that Maggie had been through. She explained to Rishi that, you know, the reason she had to rely on him was that she couldn't let her friends know that she was in this messy affair with this other guy from work, and that would ruin her career, and that she had a black eye and that she just couldn't go to work.
Because she explained that if she went to work with a black eye, that's it, gone. Her job's gone.
Yeah.
Any emotional baggage perceived by anyone else would be gone. And she's in quite a high-paying job. She's obviously got this like expensive apartment with this massive view, etc.
It would also severely hurt her career, I believe, like going forward. True. And I think that's where, you know, she's still kind of frustrated that she had to rely on Rishi. And I think Rishi, if he had to talk to her sister before all of this happened, he probably would have been defensive. But I think after looking after Sophia for so long, he wanted to actually mend the relationship between his sister, and that he kind of said that you're probably the most awesome sister in the world, and that scene where she kind of breaks down and she realized how much he means to her and how much he cares about her.
When she had he told the story about her beating up the guys who were bullying him.
Yeah.
It was quite powerful. I could relate to that because my mum had told me a story about her brother used to get bullied like on the bus and stuff. And she used to like her older brother. And she used to like go and like beat up the people that were bullying him. And so I was like, that's not unrealistic at all. I know somebody that actually happened to. So yeah, I related a little bit to that there. So it seemed quite realistic. But yeah, really, really touching kind of monologue there between the two.
It was definitely a payoff scene. A lot of the movie had been building up towards it, and it nailed it. It absolutely nailed it. I really felt for that scene. He then leaves. He leaves the.
Yeah, she basically tells him this is a one-off thing. I don't want you having any contact with.
That's right.
Anymore. You know, you. I'm really happy that you did this for me. Look, here's some money. He doesn't take the money. He says he doesn't need it. She tries to like pay him. But she basically says, look, I'm thankful to you for doing this, helping me out in this tough situation, but I don't want you in Sophia's life. She doesn't need any more false idols. She already has her father. You're a screw up. I don't want you here. And so he goes, look, I love you. And, you know.
He understands. He understands at that point that that he would leave probably a bad impression, but at the same time he still cares. And he's definitely left like an emotional impression on them.
And at this point he really loves Sophia as well. Yeah. She's like really grown on him. It's displayed by him going and beating up her dad.
Yeah. So
he leaves, he goes back to his house. He basically takes off his bandages, gets back in the tub of blood, bloody water. And
wait, we missed a scene.
What scene is that?
We missed the scene where he.
And we've been jumping around a little bit.
Yeah, we did.
Things haven't been happening in exactly the order we've been telling.
Because that's when he's about to commit suicide again, and he gets the phone call from Maggie and.
So this is the scene I'm getting into.
Yeah.
Where he's sitting in the bath, the phone rings again, and he lets it ring for a little bit. He pulls out the cord, so it's no longer ringing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like him, like, no, I want to go through with this.
Yeah, this is it. I've had enough.
Getting interrupted.
This is it. This is the point where I'm not quite sure whether I think it would have been possibly more powerful of a message if at this point where he pulls out the cord, there's a long moment where he's just sitting there looking up at the ceiling.
Yeah.
The phone's no longer ringing. I think it would have been really powerful if it just faded to black at this point, and just the movie ended. I think that would have been really, really powerful message about depression and suicide. Yeah. But it doesn't do that. So it has this kind of suspense thing where you think that's it, he's dead. Yeah. And then he decides he's going to put the cord back in just as it's stopping ringing. He picks up the phone and it's his sister. Yeah. And she says, look, I've had to think about it, and look, you could come over for dinner on Friday night and with me and Sophia. And look, if you're late or you don't come or anything happens, that's it. There's no second chances. But look, I'm going to give you this one chance. And
would you have rathered that if he pulls out the cord and then it fades to black, like it's up to the audience's interpretation whether he actually went through with it.
So
or whether he
you don't fully know whether he's dead or not. Yeah. But it's insinuated heavily that probably he died. So you don't see him like close his eyes and die. You just see him in the bathtub looking at the ceiling, and then it fades slowly to black.
Right. Well, I like the ending. I like that he kind of gets up and reforms his life. The lighting changes from this kind of grim and dark and depressing mood to something really uplifting, and he, like, you can see that he's taking steps to improve his life, and he finishes the letter by just saying, Vista, I love you and I miss you, and that's it. That's all he writes. And it shows that he's actually moved on, and that's his arc. That's his arc as a character right there.
And it's really powerful when he writes that.
Yeah. And it gives you that closure that I feel like I needed, because the movie was quite brooding, quite messed with some very heavy themes, and it needed that just to release some tension that I think has been building up for most of the film, just to because I mean most of the film you kind of just like whenever something bad happens to him, he's like, well, he's going to kill himself, but it's not a great thought to have to yourself, but by having him redeem himself and choose to stay alive, it gives you that pressure of death just looming over him and just kind of released.
So the movie ends there. That's kind of the end.
There was one scene we missed. There was one scene we missed, and it was my favorite scene.
Okay, let's go.
It was the scene where he got invited to Gideon's place, Gideon's house party.
Oh yes, that was really good. Yeah, we completely glossed over that.
Yeah, so he turns up and he kind of like he kind of fights his way through the rabble, and then he looks around asking where Gideon is, and so I love this offhanded comment by someone who's like, oh, Gideon, oh, he's trashed, man. And it made me nervous. I was like, oh my God, if Gideon is really drunk.
And he's like, do you know where he is? Oh, no, I've seen him for like 2 hours.
Yeah. And it made me really nervous because Gideon, that, Rishi was going to tell Gideon that his girlfriend was dead. And having Gideon really, really drunk and that knowing he's quite a menacing and threatening character.
And potentially on drugs as well.
Yeah, potentially on drugs as well. Does not bode well for you if you're going to tell him that.
Yeah, he's already choked him earlier on.
Yeah.
And the reason why he's doing this is this constant theme through the movie is he's a screw up, yes, but he thinks of himself as an honest person.
Yes.
He multiple times in the movie he says to people, look, I don't lie, I don't steal. I wouldn't use your money. He says this to Sophia.
Yeah.
About when he goes to the place and she thinks he's bought drugs. When he's actually getting the flip books he thinks he's bought drugs with her money.
Yeah.
So through the whole movie, he's been telling people, look, I don't lie. That's not me. I'm a good person. I don't lie. He doesn't say he's a good person, but that's kind of insinuated. And so that's why he's going to tell Gideon, because he did lie to Gideon at the start. He did it because he didn't really have a choice, but now he's going to kill himself anyway, so it doesn't really matter. He's got to right this wrong that he did. That's why he's there. I think
he didn't want to tell the truth because he was still looking after Sophia, his niece. And now that she was in a safe place, he felt really that he felt expendable.
Yeah. I thought it was also really cool. So he basically goes into this private section. They're in like this bar thing. I don't really know. It's like I don't know what it is, but there's like a big party happening.
It's his own private hangout, basically. And I want to bring this is the scene to me was the one I liked the most for its lighting. Where it starts off with this really bright neon blue, and you meet Gideon, and he's kind of just. He's decided to just let the situation. He's diffused it in his own mind. He's just let it go. He's accepted, that his girlfriend has left him. He doesn't know she's dead yet, but he's accepted. Okay, she's left.
And he's being nice to Richie at this point.
And he's just like, you know what, Richie, I really respect you, man. I really like that you showed up. I'm glad to see you, man. And
how's your sister doing?
Yeah. And you know that.
Just before we get into this, because I want to get into this, but what did you think when he walked in? I thought it was really cool. He like kind of slow motion walks out and there's like this projector playing like a D-Day movie, like black and white. I thought that was really cool.
That was
like, it doesn't really make sense why that's going on, but it was it looked like the whole movie, there's this like these cool things happening and it's done in a way that looks cool. It doesn't really make sense. But it's just done because it looks badass. And
I was kind of expecting it when I first saw the projector. I'm like, oh man, the cinematographer is going to have fun with that. And then, when you saw Gideon like walk in front of the projector with the light shining on him, it kind of looked. Although he's trying to accept what happened to him, like his girlfriend's left him, you could see there's still this dark, kind of presence to him as a character. So he confronts Gideon, and Gideon's like, yeah, man, like it's fine. I'm got a positive attitude. He explains a little bit about his past that he managed to set up this business when he was 19, and he was making like $16,000 or something like lots of money.
Moving moving $60,000 a night, like a nightclub. Like he was setting up like a nightclub thing.
And so he's staying really positive, and Rishi is just trying to tell him, trying to reinforce, like, hey, you like, because he knows he wants to kill himself, he just wants people to remember, like, I was honest. I think that was the most important thing.
And he cares about him. He wants him to know what happened to his girlfriend. He knows it's going to hurt. He knows it's going to hurt him, but he knows he needs to know, and he's probably not going to find out otherwise. It's going to be swept under the table. He's never going to know. It's going to eat at him forever. Yeah. He needs to tell this guy.
Definitely. So he cares about people, and he wants to be honest. There's like the two things he wants to like leave people with, if that's the last thing they remember of him. So then he like Gideon, like the light is still kind of, bright, but then it starts to darken, and this is when Rishi starts to actually finally be able to get a word in against Gideon, because at this point,
he's like trying to sell him drugs and stuff. He's like, I know what you're here for, man. Look, I'll give you drugs. Like I got uppers, I got doubters, I got everything. But she's just like, nah, man, I just want to stop. I want to tell you something.
And at this point, it's also been a lot of mid shots. And then it finally gets to that point where Rishi can finally get a word in, because Gideon has just been blasting him with it. I mean, he's like drunk, and he's obviously on some drugs.
He is lucid though.
Yes.
He's just quite frantic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can relate to that, like when you get to that drunk state, and you're just like, yeah, man, I love you, man. It's cool, man. It's fine. I've accepted it. And then Rishi kind of spills the beans about, what had happened to his girlfriend. And then it's close-ups, and it's an intense look from Gideon. And he's like, you're not messing with me, man, are you? You better not be messing with me, because he had just let this go. But he also didn't know that his girlfriend was dead. And to hear that news, he was just ready to mess someone up. And it got dark, and the camera angle started to have these red tinges to it. And then he basically just assaults Ricky, right, and knocks him out. And he wakes up in this car, and in the background there's just all these reds, and it's really alluding to this as his death. But there's this kind of solemn look on Rishi.
And he's got a gun in the front.
Yeah,
he's like holding a gun.
Rishi sees the gun, and he's got this very solemn look on him.
And it's like it's insinuated heavily in this scene. They're driving along dark. He's got all his like bodyguard guys in there. That we've seen throughout the thing. He's sitting he's riding shotgun. Richie's in the back. You can see him with a gun in his hand. I can't exactly remember where he's like checking the chamber or something. But you see that Richie sees that there's a gun there, and it's heavily insinuated that like they're going to pull over in some dark place. He's going to get a gun in the back of his head, and he's going to get off. Pretty much, that's what's insinuated.
Like with the lighting, like alluding to that red lighting, like this is going to be his demise. But it's interesting that there's this very solemn look on Rishi's face. Like
he's accepted it.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was going to kill himself anyways.
Yeah. And if it makes the situation better, then he's happy to do it, I guess.
Although, like, killing someone is, he's gonna go to jail for that. So probably, I don't know. But so Richie thinks this. You think this. The viewer thinks this. Every signal points to this is what's happening. The car stops. He tells Richie to get out.
It's a very intense look too. It's a very long look, and it's an interesting look that Gideon had. It was almost like there was like some water in his eye. So he's sad, but he's also just really, really angry.
Yeah. And at this point, you still think this is happening. He gets out, closes the door,
and there's a long
car
pause.
drives off.
Yeah, there's a long pause.
The car drives off.
And Richie's just like,
Yeah, and then it's a little bit confusing here because the next scene directly is when he picks up his sister from the jail. And so I think the idea is, it's not translated perfectly, but I think the idea is that Gideon is really angry, really upset, but he respects Richie for telling him, even knowing what potentially could have happened and what we thought was going to happen. So he actually, what I think is insinuated is he actually dropped Richie off outside the place to pick his sister up, because earlier on the dialogue between them, he was telling him that he needed to go pick up his sister,
Right.
and
Yeah.
he needed to be there for her, etc. So I think that's what he did, because where he drops him off kind of cuts to the scene where he's picking her up from the jail, and it doesn't kind of look like the same place, but I think that's what the idea was.
I'm not sure about that, but it definitely shows that this was Gideon forgiving him. This was Gideon letting it go, and it's also this was the start of Rishi's redemption. And he kind of improves from that position. And what I was kind of saying earlier, about the world, it feels really big. Like there's a lot that's happened and that's been alluded to. And you don't see Gideon go off and kill Bill, but it's insinuated. And
Oh, really? I didn't even think of that.
Because
do you think he went to kill Bill?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Bill.
Okay.
He told he said how the girlfriend had died, and Rishi had figured that out.
He said that Bill thought it was bad for business.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, he's kind of responsible, so so he loaded the gun and was going to go and kill someone.
That's an interesting take, because why would he have the gun if he wasn't going to kill Richie? I assumed it was just kind of like he hadn't decided whether he was going to kill Richie yet.
Right.
And then when he tells him to get out and drives away, that's kind of like he finally decided, oh, look, I'm not going to kill Richie. Yeah. But you're right. And especially if he had dropped him off outside the jail, that makes a lot more sense. I don't know whether that's the case. That that's why he had the gun. Why else would he have the gun?
Yeah. So I like that it didn't need to say that, and it was just kind of insinuated.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting. I've seen it probably 5 or 6 times, and I actually have never thought about that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's really interesting. Yeah, you're right. He probably did go to do that.
So I believe that sums up. Well, I mean, we went through pretty much every scene there. That definitely sums things up.
So maybe final thoughts on the movie. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. There's some parts that I felt iffy about, like the flip book, the phone scene I thought was kind of odd, and the Derek scene seemed probably a bit weak. But the film develops its characters very well. It's visually spectacular, and the payoff at the end is fantastic. It gave me a lot to think about at the end of the film. There's a lot to dig into it, and I would definitely advise it to people who want a film that hits them on probably a bit of a deeper level that they can really kind of dig into and dissect a bit.
Yeah. So do you want to do like an out of 10 score kind of thing? Do you think do we want to do that?
If I were to give the movie a score, I would give a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. That's pretty good. Pretty
I would definitely recommend it.
Okay, so what I thought about the movie, obviously I said at the start of this podcast that this is my favorite movie of all time. Before seeing this movie, my favorite movie was The Brothers Bloom. After seeing it, it was on equal par with The Brothers Bloom. After seeing it a few more times, it surpassed that after I picked up some more detail from the movie from subsequent viewings. It was fantastic performances from the actors.
Yes.
The fact that the director was the main actor and was the writer for the whole movie, also did some of the music. He's obviously like an incredible talent. He's got a new movie coming out, I think called Sydney Hall. It's had a film festival release, but you can't actually get find it online or anything.
Right.
So he's someone to look out for going forward. Shawn Christensen is his name. Just that brings it up, in my opinion. The fact that he's had such a hand over this. Like usually these sort of projects, they don't turn out like this. There's just so much character in it, so much emotion.
It really is a labor of love.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there was an interview I saw with him where he says he was talking more about the short film that this is based off, that won the Oscar. he was saying how it was like a heavily personal movie for him. I think it was probably based around something that happened in his life, whether it was him or someone he knew closely. To me, just everything about the movie, the soundtrack, how the scenes were done, just so unique. The coloring, Ron Perlman's performance was fantastic.
Yes.
Sophia, I actually just looked it up before the podcast. She is the voice for Dora the Explorer.
What?
So apparently there was like, you know how like Ash Ketchum and Pokemon changed voice actors or something?
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line. So she, from 2012, she's been the voice actor for Dora the Explorer. Before that was somebody else. Yeah. I was looking on IMDb. I'm like, what? Dora the Explorer? So yeah, she hasn't really been in anything else. I think she's had a few minor roles and other things, but I think she is a real big talent as well. Her performance was spectacular. And just everything came together, and like the aesthetic of everything really just resonated with me.
Yeah.
And it's a flawed movie. There's flaws in it. There's things, I've mentioned them, that aren't perfect. But everything else I like so much, it made up for that. And because of that, it is a 10 out of 10 for me. Well, your favorite movie is going to be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely. I think my scoring was a bit odd because I would consider an average movie about a 4 or 3. And I don't tend to mark things as a 10.
Yeah.
So So
my scorings are based kind of like not on technical ability, like that could play into it.
Yeah.
But it's more how much I enjoyed it, not how good is the movie. It's how much I enjoyed it. So that's kind of my rating. Like I enjoyed it as much as I possibly could. Therefore, it is a 10 out of 10.
Right.
Rather than it is the technically best movie possibly made. There was no errors. It's a 10 out of 10. It's not that. It's more the enjoyment thing, how much I enjoyed it. Also, I've struggled with depression and, suicide and stuff. So it kind of, I could really relate to it on that level as well. Yeah. Nathan, you probably don't know much about that. But yeah, so it's heavily relatable for me as well. So that it kind of contributed to my enjoyment of it.
I could definitely see a lot of myself in that character.
Yeah. So I guess we wrap it up now.
Yeah. So that was quite a long cast, man. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please do let us know in the comments section a movie that you want to suggest to us, and we'll add that to a pool of movies to choose from, and we'll do a poll to decide what one to do next. Also, we have not actually named the show. That will also be up for debate, so do suggest your names. We've considered things like Fade to Black, Just Two Guys, Shallow Ocean, Grayscale, Disgusting Humans, Not Good, Just Two Humans, The Orthodox Cast. We're two guys from New Zealand. We've really enjoyed doing this. But do propose your own names. We're open to suggestions, and we'll be going from there. You can follow us on Twitter. The link will be below in the description. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. That will be us, and tune in next week for our next podcast.
Bye-bye. I just thought I would add in editing that next week we'll be watching Blue is the Warmest Color. If you want to watch it in preparation for next week's podcast, feel free to do so.